bit of a sore throat still, and you're going to hear me talk a lot because I'm the one telling the story today. Stevie Kutz was my uncle, and in a couple of days it'll be 12 years that he's been gone. Um, I've talked about him a lot in the last 12 years, but never like this. This is definitely, you know, the most I've probably shared, and to the most amount of people. I appreciate everybody that, Tiffany that did it last week and the next 2 weeks of people that we have. It's not easy to do this. So it's hard to figure out how I'm going to describe Stevie to you because he was such an amazing uncle to me. And he was definitely somebody I looked up to, and, and this goes without saying, but somebody I miss very much. He loved to laugh. He loved to joke around. Easily the funniest person in any room. And, when he would do Wizard of Oz impressions, the Cowardly Lion, or if he would do an Elvis impression, you thought Elvis was in the building. It was fantastic, and you always had a fun time with him. One of my favorite memories would be when he was picking me up. He lived over in Penn State, so it's about a 2-hour drive. But he picked me up from school the one day, and I was staying at his place for the weekend. And I remember he picked me up, and I had fallen asleep because I was young. I think I was maybe 9. And on the way there, he surprised me by halfway to where we were going. He woke me up and he said, "Hey, look where we're at." And we were in Hershey Park. We went to Chocolate World. And that was amazing. That I wasn't used to surprises, but that was just such an amazing surprise. And that's probably one of my fondest memories with him. He was a man that loved Penn State through and through. Luckily, he wasn't around near the end of, Joe Paterno's life because he loved Joe Paterno so much. He had season tickets, and he would always, sit in this one spot. And I still like to think that no one else sits there, but I know that's, not realistic. There's so many stories, and this goes through this entire month. There's so many stories that we can tell about the people that we love and care about the most. And there's just never enough time. There's never enough time in these videos to share that. And I'm sorry for that, but I also understand and respect that we need to prevent future issues from coming up, If you have any questions about Stevie, leave them down below. I'd be happy to, answer them. Also, about anyone else, anything you want to leave, a message for, please do it down in the comment section. Trust me, it's that would be awesome. I remember the day where I found out everything extremely vividly. It's like an accident. You remember everything. And I was at Blue Marsh, which is a reservoir that's dammed, and I was there with my Boy Scout group, and we were doing a service project. It was this big service project where everybody comes together and we all do a project at once. And our project was, we were building this staircase down this dirt path to this little area where you could fish. And it was a pretty simple job, but for 20 Boy Scouts, we'll make it okay. And what's so funny is when you would go, we did this probably every year, and every single year when we went, that Friday night, it would be the worst storm ever. It would just be, the one year someone's tent ended up in a tree. It was crazy. I mean, it's absolutely insane. It just happens over and over and over again every single year. And we don't try and stop it. I don't know why, but it's just that we just never try and stop it. But yeah, I remember that so vividly. And that was a pretty bad storm. I don't think I had even thought anything of it, that anything bad was happening that night, other than, hey, we're dealing with this storm. It's pretty crazy. Hopefully everything's okay. And, the first day we had zoned out what we were going to do the next day. We hung out, we ate food, we had fun, slept in tents, panicked because there's a storm happening, and then we went to bed. And the next morning, I remember everything was normal, except for one thing. I remember walking by some Boy Scout leaders, and they were all whispering, and they stopped as soon as they saw me, and I don't know. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I just thought, oh, that's weird. And I, probably was going to get food or going to the bathroom or something. And then the whole day we were working on the staircase. And, it was these big wooden beams that we were just putting in and put stone in. And it looked really, really nice. And it's still there today. And then, everybody throughout all of Blue Marsh, they were all doing these projects. So we would all meet collectively at this little tent they had set up, and they would give us free food. And it was awesome. Free food. Kids love free food. And I remember we went to lunch. Everything was still normal, and food was great. And it was hot dogs, I remember. And I remember walking back up. And I remember when we were walking up, I saw my mom and my stepdad. And my mom was just, you could see she'd been crying. I think she may have been crying at the time. And my Boy Scout leader just sort of patted me on the back. And it wasn't like, hey, you go. It was, I'm here for you. And my first thought that popped into my head was that my grandmother had died. And I mean, she's like my favorite person in the world. So that's always been a fear. It's still a fear now. And I remember walking up and, crying. And I'm saying, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Because that's just how I am. And we sat down at this bench that's still there, and which I haven't gone to yet. But when we sat down there, and she said the words, and I didn't understand English. The words didn't connect. They didn't make sense. I didn't comprehend any of it. But she had said, Stevie killed himself. And I remember sitting there and just not understanding and saying, what? She said it again. And it was like in slow motion, the words started coming together and forming a sentence. And I was just, I had never sobbed like that before, and I think I said, oh, Stevie. It didn't make any sense to me, but I knew Stevie was gone. And how, I was 16 at the time. How's a 16-year-old gonna process that, And I remember after that, not much. I remember driving home and getting a text from some friends from church that, were told about it because they were like my closest friends, and they said, we're here for you. But I had never lost someone like that before. It had been 10 years since I had lost my grandfather, so really death wasn't really something that was common in my life, thankfully. But when that happened, I was just sort of in shock. I don't remember anything for a couple of days after that, which is maybe normal. But I we'd finally gone to the funeral a few days later, and it was over in State College and around Penn State area, and that was not easy. Seeing anyone that you love dead isn't. But just there was a lot of shame, for myself. Um, I was ashamed that someone I cared about so much had felt that alone. I was ashamed that they didn't call me. I was ashamed that I didn't call them. It was just a whole bunch of emotions at once. And I remember sort of all sitting around after the funeral and laughing and just trying to find some sort of joy in all of it, and it wasn't really there because it didn't make any sense to me. And I remember he was cremated, and we drove home with his ashes. We got to keep the ashes, and it was this beautiful urn with deer on it. He loved deer and wildlife, and I remember holding it in the back seat of the van. And a few days later, we had the funeral. We were actually the I guess burial. We had decided we didn't want to put him on a shelf, and my grandfather was buried at our old church cemetery, and we decided we were going to bury the urn on top of my grandfather. He would always be with my grandfather and then my grandmother when she was there as well. And probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life was I was the youngest person there, and I had the smallest hands at the time, and I lowered his urn into the ground, and it's just this little box hole in the ground, and I remember lowering it in, and even my hands, it's just dirt all up my hands. And I remember going to I think I went to a Bible study right after that, and I remember my hands were just still covered in dirt, and I was afraid to wash them because it was the last place he was ever. And I would honestly love to tell you that it got easier. But it got harder every year. I didn't handle it for a few years after that. I was frustrated, and it was just even trying to understand, am I angry at him? Do I feel bad for him? Why did he do this? Why didn't he call me? Couldn't I have called him? Blaming myself, blaming him, blaming other people, blaming God, not blaming God, accepting that God cared. It was just emotions all over the place. And they're all valid emotions. Even the blaming yourself, it's a valid emotion. It's wrong. You couldn't have done anything else, but it's valid. And there was just a long time where I never thought, listen, this is personal. I used to have nightmares about seeing him dead, and it messed me up every single year. There was a year where I was on the way to work, and I think the song "See You Again" by Wiz Khalifa was playing, and I pulled over and I was bawling my eyes out and saying, "Why, Stevie, why?" And then this is probably 4 years ago, 2018, 4 years ago. I was driving in Iowa and seeing all the open fields, and I was listening to this song, Tessa. It's from Transformers. Beautiful song, instrumental, wonderful. And it just, I remember just crying my eyes out. And I think that was, I don't know, that was maybe the 8th anniversary or something. But the one thing that got me through it was that it can't be for nothing. He can't have made this mistake for nothing. Then, it was a year later, we lost Zach. And that felt, now I had a whole bunch of people that understood. And I was there, a year into not understanding, but now we lost somebody else. And it just became more and more confusing. And I think there's a common misconception that those that commit suicide, that they think, I have all this baggage. I am overwhelmed. I am depressed. I am sad. I hate my life. If I end my life, the baggage will no longer be overbearing. It'll be gone. And it's just not true. It doesn't work like that. There's nothing that goes away. Because the baggage that you are carrying only is passed on to those that love you the most. Stevie, I'm positive, didn't know this. And I am positive Stevie wasn't in the right mindset. Because if you do that, you're not in the right mindset. I don't think there's any human being in the right mindset that could do that to themselves. And that's what I want to talk about the most. Because I think so many people think it's just, hey, this is a way out of my situation. It's not. It doesn't fix anything. And we need to be real about that. Stevie died. Zach died. We're going to talk about, a whole bunch of people in the next 2 weeks that died. And it doesn't fix anything. Now, it's not always a conscientious choice. I'm not saying it is. What I am saying is that mental health isn't a bad thing. It's a manageable thing. It's something that we can all come together and say, listen, I get this. It's that you can care about the people in your immediate vicinity and say, hey, listen, maybe you're having a bad day. I'm here for you if you need me. Even if I called Stevie the night before he killed himself, I don't think I could have saved him because it had to be his choice. So if we can get this mindset in people's minds that they matter, even when they feel they don't, then I think we can genuinely save people's lives. And guess what? We won't know because they'll still be alive. People all the time can say, oh, well, I didn't kill myself. And that's fantastic, but we'll never know. And that's okay, as long as they aren't gone. As long as they haven't made this decision that is life-altering. And not only life-altering for you, but for everyone that ever knew you. He was a very popular man, and so many people got affected by that. I miss Stevie probably more than anyone else. And I wish he wasn't gone, and I wish there was something I could do to bring him back, but there's not. And this is the best I can do. The best I can do is make sure that there's never another Stevie in my life. And that there's never another Zach in my life. And these are the decisions we make. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying suicide is going to be something that is going to be eradicated. People will still make the decisions they make. But if we can be honest about what suicide is, then perhaps we can stop it from being what it isn't. A way out. I hope you guys enjoy hearing these stories. And I hope you stand with me so that we can help prevent suicide in the future. And bring awareness overall. I hope you have a great night. Thank you for listening. Bye.
I've been away we stay alive.